Hearing the words is faithful, it felt like a voice whispering, I haven't left you, even when you can't feel me, because he's always there. He's always around us.
Can't see grace for what it is until you need it most. God feels so close to us in those moments.
The third hour is here. Holy Spirit appear. Guide us in all
kind of, to me, proves like that God has knitted us together, like to glorify Him. Literally, with every breath that we take, even without us knowing it, we are glorifying God.
And glorify the risen Lord and King.
You want to have a closer relationship with Jesus, trying to be the best person you can be each and every day. That glorifies Him.
Holy Spirit, do your thing. We might not know how, but we ain't gonna feel.
Like, that is God sending us. That is how He feels for us. That is how He cares for us.
Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the third hour. Guys, we have missed you guys so much. We're excited to be back with you again. I'm excited to be on here talking to Shawn, getting to go over some of these songs, and just guys, just being present, one within, just the spirit here with us, but also having you guys here listening to us as well. We're so thankful for this podcast and the community that we have within it. Just to give you a quick, and it's going to be quick, because we really want to try to knock this out tonight and try to give you something to carry on into the next few episodes. But just a quick rundown on the past few weeks and what's going forward. Past few weeks, guys, we've been pretty transparent on the obstacles, and we've had to change things here and there, and you guys have been super patient with us. We've had breaks before and come back, and we still have support, and I want to thank you for that. But with that being said, we went to like a monthly thing and abandoned the weekly episodes, but we're going to try to go back to the weekly episodes. I think we're taking on like 100 and some songs a month, and doing it like that makes it kind of hard to hit all of them like we want to. And Shawn, you can I'll kick it over to you to kind of explain what it's going to look like going forward in terms of location, but also us kind of going back to our roots,
Yeah, we so like to Cameron's point, the monthly, it was just so many artists to try to cover and stuff. It felt like that we weren't giving enough of the artists good representation, or they're just getting lost in the mix. They're, because we weren't able to really just sit with the songs and be able to say, well, there was X amount of songs this week, and these artists really stood out to us, and this is the reason why, because we have to have so many at once. Plus, you factor in it's difficult with all the commitments and things that we have with work, other ministry things, our family. And so we're going to try to tackle that by we've set up some studio space. So we've kind of been busy with that. And we're going to try to start doing these episodes weekly together. This might be we will still have remote episodes for like when we have a special episode or we interview someone or do an artist feature. But for the music reviews, we're going to be meeting at the quote unquote studio to do a live weekly review of the songs that come out. And this way, we'll be able to give the artists some time that we feel like they really deserve and not have them all bunched up and grouped together. Try to do it once a month, and having that place where we can come together and do this weekly is really going to help us be intentional about getting these episodes out to you. One thing about it though is it's going to be, so if the new music goes out on Thursday, and we're going to try to release the episodes to you either on a Sunday evening or a Monday. So if we release music on Thursday, it will be the following week before you get an episode on it. Because again, we want to sit with the music. We don't want to put new music out on Thursday and then try to release something on Sunday, because we don't feel like it it's given the artist justice. So again, we're going to do them weekly, but it's going to be kind of 1 week behind. So I told Cameron a good way we could think about it is like when you get, you start working, you get paid, that first week, you don't get paid till the next week, so a payday for the music reviews will be the following week. But so we'll release music, and then the very next, not the Sunday after that, but the very next Sunday we'll do a weekly review on it from our new studio. So we're really excited about that. So yeah, so I will shut up there and turn it back over to you, Cameron. Looks like we got our first visitor of the.
Sorry, guys, my little visitor.
You got Bo settled in now.
Yeah, I got Bo settled in now. So yeah, so I'm super excited for going forward. Like Shawn explained, I'm super excited for the studio that we got kind of going there to be in person and talk. And excited for still some of the guest episodes and stuff we might have at times remotely, whether it be artist or someone that's not in close proximity to us, right? But super excited for the future and the setup going back to the weekly. With that being said, what we're going to do tonight, I know we had said going forward, we're going to go to that weekly method so we can really hone in and talk deeper about the songs, because we would have fewer, right? We could kind of settle with them a little more and meditate on them. But going forward, or this particular episode right now, we have some ground to cover. So we have everything in the last month in March and April. We're not going to cover it all, but we're just going to highlight some songs that, really touched us. And we're going to end it after that, and we'll go into next week and start picking up the weekly. So with that being said, Shawn, I'm going to go ahead and kick it to you for the first song for this week.
Yeah, man. So the first song, since, covering kind of March and what we've been through in April so far, it's probably the most impactful. So when I tell you the song, some listeners are going to be, that's the most impactful song. It's such a hard hitting song. And when you really listen to the lyrics and the subject matter and what he's trying to say, it really resonates with me. And it's such a good song too, man. And it just hits so hard. But it's a song by Hovey, and it's a collab he does with DC3, and it's called American Idols. Dude, it just punches you right in the face. It's such a strong song. And the kind of theme behind it is like, so often we have lived these lives to where we're chasing a legacy or a purpose that's really worldly. We call ourselves Christians and stuff, but the things that we're living for and trying to obtain and trying to reach and stuff really only matters in the world. In the grand scheme of things, like it's not what Christ wants us to be or to do, right? We're to be following after him and being more Christ-like and trying to reach others and bring them into the kingdom. We're trying to live a life that's, when we talk about leaving a legacy, it's one that's eternal. And we've ultimately end up pursuing this stuff in our lives, these blessings and things that God gives us and allows us to just enjoy, end up becoming idols in our lives that we chase and become our purpose. And it's not what God really wants us to do. It's not really the purpose that Christ has called us to. And there's just some lines in it and stuff and some things he said. I pulled up the lyrics and I just want to read like part of it. He's like, I'm so close to the finish. Lord, don't tell me that I sold the vision. He's like, I'm a well-known Christian, but do I know the risen? And he says, and when we meet face to face that day, we're going to face that question. He said, some are going to plead their case with the things that he ain't impressed with. Dude, anyhow, and it keeps on going. It says, all my record sales, all my charted hits, did my investments fail or did I make him rich? Young rulers don't mean good stewards. When you do it for the least, then you're doing it for Yeshua. And I was like, dude, I mean, I know you people are probably like, this is a rap song, but when I just reading that, I get chills because I'm thinking about, how many times have I just been living life for myself and you're doing these things. And again, God gives us all these blessings and all these things for us to enjoy down here. And we end up, just turning it and using it for just, personal enjoyment to the point that it becomes more than God in our life should be. It becomes a bigger priority than what God should be. And we've made things into idols, and we end up making our own life into an idol and stuff. And later on, when, like I said, this is a collab with DC3, when he starts rapping and stuff, he starts talking, and he's got this line where he says that, basically, like, we call out Judas, we think about Judas betraying Jesus. It's like, but Judas got paid. We do it all the time for free. And I was like, that's so true. It's like, how many times have I betrayed him? Judas did for like 30 pieces of silver. And how many times have I like betrayed him? And I've, for no reason other than just fleshly selfishness, other than just, this worldly purpose, that's been whispered or that's trying to resonate with my flesh. But anyhow, the song is awesome. Like I said, it hits hard. It's got great lyrics, and that line too by DC3, when he said that, it also reminds me of this song that Josiah Queen has out called Judas. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's basically saying the same thing in his song. And I was like, maybe that's something, that God is putting on these artists' hearts right now to try to convey to his people. It's like your priorities are in the wrong place. And you guys are like, you don't even realize it, but you're selling me out. You're like Hovey said here, it's like you're selling the vision that I've given you and the purpose that I've given you for things that are fleeting, for things that are momentary, for things that do not have any eternal weight or value to them. That's going to be gone when you breathe your last breath. And you're striving and living for these idols, and they don't matter, So yeah, I feel like, that message, God's just really put it on a lot of the artists' hearts when you look at a bunch of what Forrest and like I said, Josiah and other ones and stuff are doing and things. It's really just trying to make people realize that, hey man, you ain't the main character of the story. This life is not all about you.
Yeah.
So so that I'm gonna come out of the gate with guns blazing. That song probably has been one of the best ones, over the last month and a half. That's just really hit me. Yep.
Yep. I love that song. And, one thing I was thinking of as you was talking, and I'm not sure the exact verse, but, was it, what gains a man to, what was it, to gain the whole world but lose his soul?
To lose his soul.
And it kind of, for me, it kind of brings me back to that place, how many people, or how oftentimes even, myself, that I'm here chasing things, things like of the world, whether it be just acceptance or that next job opportunity or whatever it may be. But, how many people along the way am I ignoring, how many people that I could be helping with a conversation, or even in my pursuit, it's not always like a clean pursuit in the sense that everything is just going great the whole time. Maybe in my pursuit for whatever I'm wanting, I'm complaining, fussing and stuff. And how much of that am I just ignoring the people that I could be witnessing to on the way?
Mm-hmm.
I think that song is really good for like self-reflection and really just, I think you mentioned it. It's been put on a lot of artists' hearts, here recently with a lot of these songs that have came out. The one that you mentioned though, Judas by Josiah Queen, I actually had that one on mine as well to talk about. And so this is a great way to just kind of go into it. This song, man, I love it. And at first, he was dropping the chorus by itself, right? And the chorus is so impactful in and of itself. But it's like, yeah, maybe I'm like Judas. Maybe I'm that thief. Maybe I'm that sinner that put you on that tree. For 30 pieces of silver, he ain't worse than me. Because he betrayed you for money, and I did it all for free. And
Yeah.
at first, when I heard the lyric, just in a clip form, just the chorus, it was like a shot at me, but I still had a hard time understanding the full context of it. And like listening to the whole song, I take it as, cause, and I'll go back to the first verse a little bit. I take this song in a lot of ways like someone that has accepted Christ in their life and, have had that moment of their eyes being opened. And I don't know, you had that moment where you understand just like what Jesus has saved you from and all he's done for you. And even in the first like lyrics and stuff of the song, it says, "Who opened my blind eyes and made him see? He said, 'Come and follow me. I'll show you what life is meant to be.' And I said, I'd never turn away. I said, I'd never leave his side all the days of my life. But here I am weak and I'm afraid." And I think a lot of times, like, for me, it's like as a Christian, like sometimes like the weight of that, he has redeemed me and he's saved my life. And then sometimes I just trade him away for the idols of the day, like, what you mentioned in that other song. Something, even something maybe not intentionally, just, a season I'm going through. Maybe I put him behind as I'm going through something. And that's not the right thing to do. But I do love how he comes back around in this song and it kind of brings you back, like this, even the second verse kind of brings you to, I think, is it Psalms 51? It's like in his second verses, he said, Lord, I'm here and I repent. So clean my heart, clean my hands. And then at the end of it, he kind of brings it back around to say, I pierced your hands, I stabbed your back, I went and turned away from the only friend I had. But even in my brokenness, the Savior died for me. And at the end, just to sum it all up, it says that God in all of his mercy went and purchased me. I just love that. Like I said, I think there's a lot of times we fail and we do it sometimes without even realizing it, and we trade him away for nothing. But at the same time, he loves us, and his mercies kind of ran over us every day. But it's still also, I feel like, a call to, with the help of Christ in us, to hopefully acknowledge that more, how many times we do kind of pick idols and things like that over him.
So, yeah, and you're kind of talking about the Psalms 51 there, and creating me a clean heart, O Lord. The next song that I have kind of focuses in on a couple different psalms, and it's the song by New Path Worship where it's called Cover Me, and just it's an awesome worship song, and just talking about how we can take refuge in God, we can find our cover, our peace, in him. And Psalms 57 and Psalms 91 both talk about God covering us with his wings and taking refuge in him, and that he is faithful, to protect us, against the storms that we face in life. And it's just a beautiful song by them. And there's a line in it that talks about, I think it does it a couple times, but it talks about how he's just going to linger. It's like, I'm just going to linger here, and I'm not going to rush away from this moment, and just enjoy this peace and this safety that I'm feeling in you. And I think so often the world wants to keep us so busy and keep us just inundated with one thing after the other, that we don't find that rest and that peace that God has for us, because we just don't slow down to rest in him. And I find that if you can take time away and just begin to thank God and just really start to dwell on the blessings and things in your life, and just just have that just try to shift your mind to a place of gratitude, and know that everything that you have, that the life that you're living, the ups and the downs, everything is in God's control, and Jesus told us and said, who can add an inch to his height by worrying about it? It's like we just let the things of this world consume us and steal our joy, our time, our thoughts. We worry about stuff so much, and we just need to come into him. We just need to find our rest in him. He wants to cover us. He wants to give us peace. He wants to, provide and protect us. Let's let him do it. Find ways, be intentional to carve out time in your life to just spend with God, to try to find that peace, to just try to rest in him. And I promise you, it'll change your perspective on things, and it gives you energy and strength to continue to move forward, and to move forward into not just what you want to do. Before we were talking about those idols and things, we end up building our own life and making our own life sometimes. But when we are intentional about trying to find rest in God and stuff, it gives us strength and energy to move forward for his purpose and for his call for our life. So yeah, Cover Me is a great song. New Path Worship, really good song. That was another one that really, hit hard for me. So really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, and even kind of keep on the same theme about just the worship songs. I'm kind of like pairing two songs, but they're both from a worship group called Southeast Worship out of Louisville, Kentucky. Just really, probably over this last year, become like one of my favorite worship groups to listen to. They're not super popular yet, but a lot of their songs just have really struck home with me. When we did our 2025 recap, their song Get His Good is one of my favorite songs, at least recently, that I've listened to. and it was one of the top songs I had on that episode. But I have two that I'm combining over this last little bit that have came out, and both of them, I think I'll start with this one because I think it kind of ties into like what you were talking about, right? Just kind of like walking with Jesus and walking in that, just being grateful for it and being side by side with him in that path. What a Privilege is the first song that I want to talk about by them. And it might be my favorite out of the two, but I love it. Like, what a privilege to follow Jesus. And so many times, and, even back to my last song review thing that I did with the Judas song, right? It's so easy. And not to say that it's not important. It is important to, when you fall, like, get back up and seek Jesus and understand that he loves you. But I think oftentimes we definitely talk about the trials and stuff, and not to say they're not important, but we talk about the trials so much that we go through as Christians, and getting through like some of those things. But what a privilege it is to just live in his plan and live with him, being aware of how present he is with you and just your everyday life, your prayer, um, the times that you do struggle, but the times that you feel like you're on the mountaintop, like it's such a privilege to live and walk in that and walk in it with him. And so I'm kind of just taking it on in the sense of like, just like, man, like I look around and not to say that, we do it for blessings, but look how much like he's blessed me in ways that I could have never imagined. And, you just kind of talked about like the busyness of life. How much do I get or how many times do I get stuck in the busyness of life and I don't realize like how far, he's brought me from where I was to now. And that's to give him all the, the glory and praise. I'm not trying to say anything about me, but it's like from a standpoint for me, it's like I should be more grateful because I really am walking in privilege. Like I'm a part of this family in Christ that I don't deserve. And, the things and stuff I've done, but through him that I get to walk in that. And it is like, it's what a privilege. And I love that song, but in the same group, they also had a song called Warn to Working Power. And I know there's an old song and you probably can tell it to me, but it talks about the power of the blood,
What are you saying, Cameron?
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that you're old. I'm just saying that your knowledge, especially being, doing worship and stuff like that. What's that song called? Power of the Blood, right? The one that's we play in church
Power of the
sometimes.
blood, yeah.
So that kind of
Working power in the blood.
yeah, and so I feel like that song and this song kind of ties in together. And this is just kind of, I'm not saying it's a remake or anything, but it pulls from the same strings, right, as that song. And the bridge in it says, the same spirit that raised him up lives in us, right? And it's kind of just talking about how like there's power in the blood, power in his name, and kind of walk in that, like in the sense that I think you have some authority that you can like in his name cast out those things that might be trying to oppress you or harm you, and even praying over people that are sick and whatever the case may be. But there's wonder working power in his name and in his blood, so it kind of just hones in on that a little bit. And like I said, you heard the song Power in the Blood. It's, if you like that song, you're gonna love this song too. They're hand in hand, I feel like. But Southeast Worship, guys, go check them out. Again, they're one of my favorite worship groups of this year, and those two songs really spoke to me. Maybe my two favorite songs of this big list we had. I really liked them.
And you mentioned like it's not really a remake, but not to get off on a tangent, but there are some good remakes on the March and April's music. Some really good ones. Staying in Your Love, History Maker, several other ones. But anyhow, and not to digress, but my next song, which is Say a Prayer by Zach Williams. Just, I don't know, it kind of resonates with me. We were talking about just a few minutes ago about, not getting consumed with like the busyness of life and just kind of getting our minds into a place of gratefulness and thankfulness towards God and stuff. Well, prayer is so underutilized. And Paul tells us to do it without ceasing, right? So we should always be in constant communication with God. But I think this resonates with me because in the song, there's lyrics about how, like, he struggles with who he used to be. The devil tries to remind him of that stuff, and then he thinks about this is a collab with
Zach Williams and Thomas Rhett.
Thomas Rhett. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So Thomas sings a verse too, talking about how when he thinks about what type of husband he's been and what he is to his father and stuff. And they're like, when these moments hit and when like the enemy's whispering to you and trying to make you, kind of dwell in your failures and things and stuff, it's like, what can you do? And it's like, well, I could say a prayer. And it's so true. And we overlook it. It's like a lot of times it's like when all else fails, then we go to God, and that's the last thing. It's like we should always be talking to God and taking things to God in prayer. And Paul tells us that too. He's like, take everything to God in prayer. And when you do, he says, you'll find a peace that passes all understanding. And it's so true. Anytime that I can get myself to do that, it's like, again, and you pull yourself out, separate yourself out and get some time alone, rest in God. It's like the more that you kind of focus and you try to do what the Bible tells you to do, you find that peace and joy that you've been looking for, right? But yeah, so this is a really good song, or at least for me it is, because like I said, it just reminds me that when everything's against me and when the enemy's trying to remind me of past failures or who I was or whatever, it's like, and I don't have to dwell in that. I can take things to the Lord in prayer. And that brings change. That changes my heart, changes my position. So yeah, that's my third song. That's out of the month. It's just a really great song, really good one.
Yeah, and I love that song too. And I think too, at least I've noticed in my life, you may start with I guess, being around, and it's a blessing, being around such great mentors and elders in the faith and people that's been in that walk for a while. You hear them pray and it's so impactful, and you just see just the connection with God and stuff. When you first start out, I guess I'm speaking to the people, if you don't pray often or you just maybe started this walk, the more you pray, I have found the more connected I feel. And it's not that it's a thing where you have to pray long or pray short. Well, I guess the point I'm making is don't feel insecure in your prayer life if you're next to someone and you're like, man, my prayers don't sound like that, or do they need to sound like this or sound like that when I'm in prayer. I think, which obviously, Jesus, I feel like gives us a good example of how to pray if you want to start somewhere. But even with that, just talk. Just talk to him. And I have found that my conversations and my prayers and stuff have gotten deeper and deeper, like over time. And like I said, it's not that I'm necessarily trying to make it long or short or whatever. I'm just making the point that don't feel insecure in your prayers, and don't feel like you're not saying it the right way or whatever. God just wants you to come to him. You're having a conversation with your friend. You might slip up and you might say things, but even with a friend, you want to be honest, and he just wants you to be honest with him, I feel like.
And I'll say nothing too, and this is something that you've said before and mentioned, and it's so true. It's like, even when you don't feel like you should be talking to God, because that's another thing that the enemy will do, will make you feel shame and guilt. And it's like, man, I don't even need to be talking to him because, he's so holy and righteous, and here I'm, filth and stuff. It's like, I'm messed up, or I'm questioning, or whatever, that's when you still need to talk to him. It's like, definitely run to him and talk to him when that happens. Like, because the enemy wants to put up a wall and, divide you and keep you from spending time with the Father, man. So yeah, do like Paul said, pray continuously, whether you feel like it or whether you're worthy or not. Take it to the Father. There's an old hymn that talks about, needs or what problems and things we needlessly carry because we don't take things to God in prayer, So anyhow, I don't want to forfeit any more of my peace or anything,
Yeah.
I want to be able to rest in that joy and peace that Christ has for me. So, feel like kind of all these songs and stuff's been kind of spurring and stirring me to do that more, and again, just to rest in him and to take things to him first and foremost.
Yeah, and I think that we have 100 and some songs from the last time we recorded to now, and it seems like we've picked the right ones. I feel like I know that we're hitting on different points, but it all seems like it, at least for me, and I think for you, just based on what you just said, it's definitely settled in our hearts, and not only like having us kind of reflect on some things, but also or even be aware of some things, but also to like take action, whether it's in prayer, and dropping idols and stuff like that. I mean, I think these songs have really settled in with us good. I feel like God's really just put these selected ones on our hearts for this episode, and I know somebody else is out there feeling the same thing that we're feeling as we've listened to them. But just to kind of go off the same theme in terms of like the country music sounding, because Zach Williams, Thomas Rhett had obviously Thomas Rhett,
very country.
had a country vibe. And so this song is too, in my opinion, and I've never heard of this guy before, so I don't know if he's a country artist and he has this particular song, or if he's a Christian artist and he sounds country. I don't know, but it's Scotty Inman and it's called "Broken Man Can." And this song right here, I love it. Yeah, and I cannot tell you. Well, I'll read a little bit of the first verse. It wasn't the same kind of sermon that you hear on Sunday morning. He was talking about his past. He was talking or telling us of his story, how he danced with the devil, drank his pain from a glass, going down a road called hopeless. Thought he'd never make it back. When the altar call was given, so many people came and prayed, and it became so clear to me that day. And before I get into the chorus, I cannot tell you how many times I've had conversations with people, and it's been people, of course, that have made that profession of faith and surrendered their life to Christ in situations like this with these kind of sermons. Or it's been people that have not made that step yet, but have shared with me how impactful something like this is. And what they're talking about is, those moments to where it could be in a sermon, it could be a preacher, it could be, I feel like this could even be in conversation. But when somebody shares their testimony, shares what has happened to them and the struggles they had been through and how Christ has pulled them out of it and how he saved them. I think that as you go into the chorus, it says, nobody helps a broken man like a broken man can. I love just some of the words. It says, nobody builds solid ground like those who build on sinking sand. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's God's plan, because we all need help and nobody helps a broken man like a broken man can. And I think for the first verse or two, it's really kind of talking about someone and their testimony and how it could help you just feel relatable to them. Hearing how Christ has saved us and how he saved us from the things that we've maybe struggled with. It helps them get to the foot of the cross. But I like how the song doesn't just settle there. He brings it around to the one that was broken, right? And in the bridge, it says he was bruised for our sin, marked for the words he spoke, and he was nailed to a cross. So I know he knows broken. And then, of course, it goes through again the chorus. And so, yeah, I mean, the one that was broke for us, right? Like, nobody can help us like a broken man can. And in this sense, it goes through the bridge and talks about Jesus. And so if you ever get a chance, guys, definitely go check that one out as well.
Yeah, and you're talking about that broken man and what Jesus suffered and did for us, and how he puts the words in that song together is so great. It's so spot on, because your testimony can help others, find hope, where they've not seen it before, just hearing what you've been through and how God's moved in your life. And it's funny that we talked about Zach's song and it's been kind of country, and the Broken Man song and it's kind of country, and then kind of my fourth song is also in that same vein. And it's Brandon Lake and Lainey Wilson's song, The Jesus I Know Now. But the thing is, though, is I'm torn with it, because it is a great sounding song. What they say in it is true. But when I think about that Broken Man song, in the words in it, and what Christ spilled for us, the completely broken, his blood poured out for us, and then this song, like I said, what they sing in it, what they say in it is true. It's basically saying, it's like, at times you've heard people preach this very hard and judging God, and if you slip and mess up, then it's all over for you. It's like, but that's not the Jesus they came to know, and the Jesus that they know forgives, and he forgives again. But I don't know, it's just something about it too. At the same time, like I worry that like it's also not conveying the seriousness of like, yes, the Jesus loves you unconditionally and has all this grace for you, but man, the price that it cost you, it cost him to do that, to bring you in right standing with the Father and to give you an opportunity to be with him and fellowship with him and stuff. It's like, and it was a lot. And he doesn't want to leave you in that mess. There's a line in it. It says, Jesus is the one who hangs out with misfits and he listens and forgives again. And he's not running away from the party crowd or anything. And it's all true, but I don't know. I'm just torn with it because in certain ways it makes me feel like it's not conveying, like again, I said, that cost that it cost him, to to be able for you to feel and know that love, and what that makes you want to do. I feel like he calls us to be better than just to be in the party crowd or better than just to keep messing up again and stuff. He told the lady, they brought that lady in adultery to her, and he says, I'm not condemning you and I'm not judging you, but he says, go and sin no more. And that's what I expect, to happen, as we come to him. It's like hopefully as we fall in love with him and see everything that he's done for us and stuff, it's taken us from who we were, to who we can be in him, that we're becoming more and more like him and following him. So I love the song. I'm just torn with it a little bit. I wrestle with it a little bit because I want people to know that, but I don't want them to get the wrong perception about it either. If that makes sense. I don't know, man, but
I get what you're saying. I really do. I'm gonna give you like another side of it because this is also my song. This is gonna be my fourth song.
Okay, awesome. All right, so
Yeah.
see, things are coming together then. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I really like this song. I'm just gonna give you like another side of it. I mean, I do understand what you're saying too, and I do think that it's the hope, right? That and when I say hope, it's the belief. Like when you surrender your life to Christ, I really think over time, it's that constant, ongoing process of sanctification. You're becoming more Christ-like, I feel like, and so there's going to be a calling to leave those things
Yeah.
behind. And he talks about how you pick up you pick up your cross daily and follow him, right? So I do understand what you're saying, and I do think that there needs to, especially with society right now, it's crazy because it's like a pendulum. Like I feel like there's definitely certain crowds that don't understand sin enough, don't probably, and I try to use this in a certain way that I'd rather flesh it out in context and like really talk about it more, but don't fear God. I don't fear sin. And so you have that side of it. I don't really understand the dangers of it as much, but then you also have the side that will sin and will turn away from God because they think that he doesn't love them. And so it's like a constant back and forth, right? And I'm sure that's, just the ever many like attacks of the enemy to keep everybody separate and in different ballparks and further away from God. And that's what's so beautiful about God and God's word is that I think it could reach out to many different people in many different ways. And, I mean, his word is consistent and true, but for someone over here that maybe needs to hear this song, like it might help them get to the foot of the cross and help them understand how much they're loved. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like, for me, this song, I think that it settled with me. The reason why it spoke so true to me, is because I have people in my life that I feel like doesn't know the Jesus that I know now. And I feel like they've been brought up knowing, a Jesus version of, I don't like to say a version of Jesus, a misportrayal, I guess, of Jesus. I feel like, in the sense, I want to say it's almost like more like Pharisee-ish, as far as like, in the Bible, but it's all about the law and it's not about God's grace. It's not about, what Jesus done for us and what it covers. And when you look at it from that standpoint, the way the Pharisees did back in the day, I mean, sit here, like, as it says, if I smoked, if I drank, if I cussed, I'd think I was on a long black train to hell. Like, that is kind of like that way of thinking. And I guess what I mean by that is I'm kind of really just talking to like the non-believers that are struggling. I have like people in my life that struggle with some of these things and that I think it hinders them from coming to Christ or having a deeper relationship with him because they feel like they got to pick. And granted, you should pick Jesus. It should be cut and dry. But people, like, I'm not saying that the people I'm talking about per se are addicted, but when you are attached to something like that, sometimes it doesn't just shed off instantly. And I feel like in that sense is that Jesus wants you to come to him. Jesus wants you to know that what he's done has covered you and he loves you. And I think it's just about getting that first step. And then as you're going through this process, like I hope that through that, those things will be shed off, like the things that don't further the kingdom and don't further your relationship with Christ. But for me, I like this song because I think it helps get people to understand that just come to him. That's to me, I think the other stuff, I hope and pray that, like I said, through talking to him and through building that relationship with him, you will find out he will put on you like what you need to get rid of. But just know, like the Jesus that I know now, like he loves you and he wants you to come to him, whether you're one of these misfits or whatever the case may be. But I understand the point too that you're making, and so I
Yeah.
hope that, and I, maybe just the fact too that this is a collab with Lainey Wilson, and I think Lainey Wilson's a good faith driven woman, but she is a country artist, not a Christian artist or whatever, and so I think that this song was hopefully like put on their hearts from God, and that it's going to reach a lot of people that are going through some of this, that they feel like they can't come to God because they're one of these misfits. They're one of these that struggle with these things, and they just don't think they can get rid of it by themselves, or they don't think they can clean up and then come to God. Right? I think
Yeah.
that's the struggle, and I think in
You
a
know,
lot of ways, God, what is it? God loves us as we are, but he loves us so much he's not going to leave us there. Right?
yes, exactly. But as I sit and listen to you talk about this and stuff too, and I know you say, okay, you can kind of see it from my side too. And again, like I said, the song's true, but I just struggle with what it was conveying. But as I listen to you talk, I get that too, and I'm reminded of other scriptures in the Bible. In Hebrews, it talks about how when you're a babe, you're drinking milk and stuff, but the hope is that you progress to the meat, right, to where you're really fit for the use of the kingdom. But Paul's talking to people there that he's saying that they should be off the milk already and on meat, and they're not. So he's talking to Christians that are going through things, you know what I mean? That might be dealing with stuff like this and things that are, that they're still stuck on the first parts of the gospel, it's like, and he's like, you should be miles ahead of this stuff. You're not arguing about these things and all this, this stuff and now I'm reminded like in Philippians 2, where it says that regardless of how Jesus is being preached, he's being preached, whatever the pretense is, whatever somebody's doing it for gain or they're preaching the wrong thing or whatever. I'm reminded that God can use anything, to draw people to him. And if they're preaching Jesus, then, Paul wasn't going to fight against them, because they're preaching Jesus. And that's the only name under heaven and earth that a man can be saved, right? That someone can be saved by. So I get it, and I see what you're saying. Like I said, as you were talking stuff, it's like those scriptures were coming up, and it's right. This is probably the reason I guess I'm torn with it is because I'm further along in my walk, and I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else. I'm just saying like I feel like that maybe there's days that I am on the milk, and I should be doing the meat and stuff, but I feel like I have tried to follow Christ and to mature in my faith and to try to like you said, revere the sacrifice that he made, and to have that reverence and that, so that I don't fall back into the ways that I used to be and stuff. But for someone who doesn't know Christ at all, right? This is a great song to let him know, man, hey, Jesus loves you and cares for you in spite of all your shortcomings or what you feel like is shortcomings or failures. He loves you. And, they might not read in the scripture that, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us, but maybe through this song, they get an understanding, who he is and stuff, and it begins to bring them in and stuff. So, yeah, you made a great point, man, to kind of bring it full circle and make me kind of think about, well, why are you being torn? Why? Because again, that is the Jesus I know, is someone who loves and forgives and is right there with me, never leave me nor forsake me, but he's also called me to bigger and better things, and yeah, we've all got this walk to live, but Jesus, the scripture says he is the author and finisher of our faith. So he's doing a work in us, but yeah, it's a great song. I think, it's wild how that ended up being your fourth song too. Guys, we are so thankful for you guys to tune in, to watch us, to listen to us. We're so happy that we were able to get back and record this episode. We're sorry that it's been so long, but again, so many different things have just happened and competed for our time and our priorities. But we're back at this. We're going to try to switch back to this weekly, and so we can really focus on the artists and things. Again, I guess these songs have really kind of stuck out to us, over the month and a half. These 8 songs, 7 songs, right? Because the one song was together just now. The Jesus I Know Now was that.
But I
These
also
7
did
songs
two.
kind of.
I also
Oh,
did
you did too.
one. I
So
think it is
it's back
8.
up to 8 then. So it
Yeah.
is 8. Okay. So these 8 songs, kind of resonated with us for this last month and a half. And it looks like they've kind of all tied together to this kind of, core theme here. So, just really focusing on Christ, what he's done for us, finding our rest in him and just truly trying to live out our purpose for him and finding that joy and peace that he has for us. I feel like as we move forward, as we prioritize and shift things around to try to bring you this podcast weekly now moving forward, that's going to be at the forefront of our mind too, to make sure that that what we're doing is in line with his purpose and his plan for us. But again, we're just thankful that you guys are tuning in and listening. And we hope, like we were kind of talking about that, the last song, we hope what we're doing is making an eternal impact and maybe can reach some people that don't know Jesus as Lord and Savior, but will come to know him as that before it's too late. But guys, thank you so much for again, I've said this like 5 times already, but thanks for listening. If y'all would, please like and subscribe and follow us, and we'll see you in about a week and a half. And I think in between that, we're going to have a special episode. Am I right, Cameron?
Yep. Not to get into it too much, but we did tell you guys before that our co-hosts, Mariah and Rusty, 2 of her best buds and family, brothers and sisters in Christ, and they adopted a child, and we've shared that with you before. But Mariah and Rusty, they're going to do an episode, kind of giving you the backstory on that. And I'm not going to get into it as much. Like I said, just that that it is a blessing, and we're so happy for them. But we're going to try to have that episode probably out this week. Maybe in between. We'll look, because as Shawn mentioned before, with the songs the way they laid out, we'll see what happens as far as like the weekly song, if we're doing it this Sunday or next. But regardless, we're gonna have that episode out of Mariah and Rusty this week at some point.
All right. Well, I think then that's a wrap. And yeah, love you guys, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.